everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. I have a jammed-packed show for you this week. I have titles from Warner Brothers, Deaf Crocodile, Arrow Video, Shout Studios, MBD Entertainment, just all your favorite labels that you know and love. I have so many to dig into. I do provide a written version of most of these titles I will be talking about on GeekVibesNation.com. So if you want to get a little bit more of a deep dive into each of these titles, make sure to check that out. Most reviews will probably be posted within a week of this episode being published. So for that fact, I'm going to be doing more of a kind of a broad spectrum overview of most of these titles. A few of them I'll get a little bit more detailed on, but I have so many I want to dive into, so I'll just go right into it. Get strapped in for a very exciting episode. The first title is Watchmen Chapter 1 from Warner Brothers. This is an adaptation of the classic Alan Moore comic. Most will probably know that Zack Snyder did a live action adaptation in the late 2000s. That is one I'm quite a fan of, and there was there's several different versions of that one released to kind of try to get it more closer to the source material, including some animated segments that were kind of left out of the movie for pacing purposes that were kind of integrated back in. This one, we have a fully animated adaptation, and I didn't know what to expect coming from this, but this is from the DC animated team. They've given us all kinds of titles with like the Justice League, Batman. The DC animated team or the Warner Brothers animation team has done some Mortal Kombat adaptations. So I was interested to see what they would do here, and what they choose to do with Watchmen Chapter 1 is basically just give you the most faithful version of Watchmen that we've had to date. Off the page. So this chapter 1 goes up to a point, I won't spoil it, but there's a event with Rorschach, our mass vigilante, that seems to be a fitting endpoint, which they kind of integrate here. But this is just not a beat for beat, but almost beat for beat adaptation of that source material, just brought to life in pretty solid animation. Voice cast is very talented. They don't get too many starry people to provide voices. They mostly just get very talented vocal actors, but you do get people like Matthew Rhys and Katie Sackhoff and Titus Welliver. I think those would be the most known people. But it has a pretty good cast. It all comes together pretty well. It just doesn't do anything like mind-blowing if you just don't have time to read the source material. I mean, I guess this is a decent Cliff Notes version of it. But it's fine. It doesn't really bring new depth to the source material, but it's one of the greatest texts. But it's passable. So Watchmen Chapter 1, if you enjoy the Watchmen universe and you just want to see it brought to life in an animated form, it does a good job. And this 4K, it looks really good, HDR10, DTS 5.1 sound, looks really great, very bold, vibrant colors. There's no Blu-ray to compare this to, but this just looks very nice in 4K. The audio sounds good. You get a couple of featurettes that talk with the creative team talking about bringing this source material to life. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Chapter 2 whenever it drops, just to complete the story. But for right now, it's a pretty passable, entertaining adaptation. Next from Warner Brothers is a TV series, and that is Vikings Valhalla Season 1. This is the Netflix follow-up to the History Channel show, which I have talked about on the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel before. I talked about the complete series. This is the follow-up that takes place 100 years later. So it's kind of a different feel. This is right with the Vikings, kind of at the tail end of kind of their kind of reign or their place in history, where the Viking culture is starting to be kind of decimated a little bit by Christianity, and how that is kind of making these once like fierce warriors, how they kind of are adapting to kind of this change over the century. There's still a lot of violent conflicts and stuff, and it plays with history. I would not come to this show for historical accuracy. But there are some historical figures. The one that I had heard about before watching this is Leif Erikson. But just kind of some of their adventures and stories and how that kind of plays out, it does a pretty good job. It is nowhere near as good as the original mothership of Vikings. I would say that it's not as good as the original Vikings, but the last few seasons of Vikings could probably stand toe-to-toe with Valhalla, with maybe Valhalla at times pulling ahead of those last couple seasons, where if you've seen the series, you kind of know when that dramatic shift happened. But this is fine. If you just like living in this Vikings world, it does the trick. It's just not a fantastic show. It almost kind of turns into almost like good background watching, almost like second screen. That's damning with faint praise. But if you like this series, it does enough to keep you kind of engaged and want to know what is going on. It has all 8 seasons from the first or 8 episodes from the first season. No special features, but just very good high definition picture and DTS 5.1 sound. So if you want to own this, if you like the Vikings universe, Valhalla season 1, it's on Blu-ray now. Check it out, and you don't have to be beholden to Netflix any longer. There's like 2 more seasons of this. I think one of which maybe debuts in like a month or so, season 3. So hopefully those will all come out sometime in the next few years, so you can have your complete Vikings collection. Heading over to one I was very excited to revisit from Lionsgate. This is the 4K debut of Wind River with Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. This is a movie from director Taylor Sheridan, who wrote the screenplay for Hell or High Water. He created the Yellowstone shows. He wrote the screenplay for Sicario. I'll show off kind of the disc art here. So here's the 4K disc art. So this is one that I watched in theaters back when it came out. I believe in like 2017, 2018. So that there's some text here and here. That text, it says, "There will come a day when I rest against its spine and look out over a valley where the sun warms but never burns." So that's a passage from the movie. And this is about a native girl who is found on a native reservation who has been raped and killed. And she is found out in the snow by Jeremy Renner's character. The FBI comes to investigate. They send out Elizabeth Olsen's character, and they try to investigate what happened to this native girl. There's always so much tragedy surrounding a native reservation, and just how many women are left to just kind of disappear and slip through the cracks. And this movie is really addressing that, and just this investigation, it's very thrilling. It has a lot of twists and turns, has really great lead performances, and how it eventually builds up to its finale. I think it pays off very effectively. It's really, I remember loving it in theaters, and I loved it upon a rewatch. So this is one, it's just very watchable. It's very, I hate to use this word, but important, shedding light on an issue of just overlooked, marginalized communities just not being taken seriously by law enforcement, and how that kind of plays out. But I really, really love this movie. It's one that I think is kind of overlooked in the kind of Taylor Sheridan universe, but it is very good. This now comes in 4K in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio. So both the picture and audio has been upgraded from the previous Blu-ray, of which is also included. So the Dolby Vision looks great. I think this is a title that especially flourishes in 4K because there's so many snowy expanses with very just like sheets of white across the screen. So you want something that's not going to succumb to a lot of banding or blooming or anything like that. Everything is kind of kept very tight and just a very crisp picture that kind of retains its original qualities. And the dark scenes, you don't get any banding. Everything, the blacks are very deep and everything like that. It's not a very colorful film, but the gradients and like the contrast, you want all of those to be kept in like a certain range, and this Dolby Vision presentation does that. The Dolby Atmos audio also gives a very expansive experience, very immersive. So whenever you hear the wind and the snow just kind of blowing, you kind of get that kind of like a surrounding, enveloping feeling around you with the Dolby Atmos track. In terms of special features, you don't get a lot added. It carries over the previous couple of featurettes, which were like a pair of deleted scenes and a behind-the-scenes gallery. And the 4K disc just adds a trailer, which was not on the previous disc. So not the most packed with special features, but just as a film, it's fantastic. So Wind River. This Steelbook 4K release is exclusive to Walmart. So if you want this on 4K, head to Walmart and make sure to check out Wind River. It should be out by the time this episode is released. My next 4K release is a Lionsgate title not released by Lionsgate. I'm going overseas to Australia to Via Vision and their 4K release of Dredd in this nice limited edition packaging. So you can kind of see the lenticular effect here. This is a big chunk of a release. So you have a J card here with all the information, which I'll kind of go over here in a little bit. Here's the back of this release. So it's a pretty thick release. It is a 3-disc set. Here's the cover art here. So you have the 4K disc. You have the standard Blu-ray and the 3D Blu-ray here. And then also in this package, you get a set of art cards here, which I'll show off real quick. I believe there's 6 of them. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah. So you get 6 art cards and then the lenticular packaging as kind of like this deluxe packaging presentation. But how are the discs? So I will say I've only owned the previous Lionsgate Blu-ray before. They did release a 4K disc, which I never picked up. And then they re-released it in a Steelbook packaging, which I still did not pick up. So whenever I saw that Via Vision was releasing this in 4K, I was wondering how this would kind of pan out, because I knew that original Lionsgate disc, while had its attractive qualities, I know a lot of people had some issues with how it looked. So to cut to the chase, I do not have that Lionsgate disc, but what I can ascertain, it appears that this Via Vision 4K disc is just an exact port of that Lionsgate disc. So all the benefits and all the detractions from that particular release, it is just kind of the same with this 4K disc. But there are some benefits, which I'll kind of talk about here in a second. But for that 4K disc, it is a 4K transfer. I believe it is from a 4K scan of the film out. So there are, and this is an HDR10. It does not have Dolby Vision. I know there have been certain international releases which have kind of implemented Dolby Vision with 2 mixed results from what I've read. A lot of this is just based on what I've kind of tried to research about this particular title. But it appears that this HDR10 release from Lionsgate is probably your best bet overall if you want it in 4K. There are several shots that I noticed in here where I was very concerned because they looked very soft, and I was just like, are we sure this is 4K? But then they would just come to another scene where you get a lot of really nice rich detail and nice like stubble and everything is very clear, and then like the HDR with some of the very colorful like drug sequences, those looked very nice and stuff. But just as a 4K presentation, it is not the most like mind-blowing 4K presentation. It's probably the best that this film looks, especially with the previous Blu-ray that was released. It had the Blu-ray, the standard Blu-ray and the 3D on one Blu-ray disc. So that is kind of one of the more poorly looking discs that were released by Lionsgate around that time. So just having, like, in comparison to what that Blu-ray looked like, I think the 4K is a nice representation of this film, and it kind of gets its more gritty qualities that certain other presentations do not quite capture. So it's not a gorgeous disc, but I think it's kind of the most accurate we can get right now based on how they scanned it and all of that stuff. So it looks good, sometimes very good. It's just not a home run, so not everyone will want to spend the coin for this. And if you do just want the 4K disc, like I said, you can just get this domestically from Lionsgate, either if you can still track down the Steelbook, or if you can just buy a standard 4K disc. You might want to go that way. But the Blu-ray disc in here are notable for a couple of reasons. One is, as you saw, there is one for the Blu-ray and one for the 3D experience. I do not have a 3D television, so I could not fully check that disc out, but I do know that that has a 7.1 DTS presentation, along with that that is also on the standard Blu-ray disc. I know that most releases with this title either had the old Blu-ray disc packaged here in the US, or most of the overseas releases were given a 5.1 release, which people have complained was very neutered. So if you want the film on Blu-ray or 3D with 7.1, you can get that here. It sounds very nice. It's not quite as pinpoint precise as the Atmos experience on the 4K disc, but this DTS 7.1 does sound very nice. So those just looking for the best Blu-ray presentation, this will probably get you there. And there is an exclusive commentary track that has been added to the standard Blu-ray disc, that if you want a new commentary track, you can check that out through Via Vision's set. So for the best Blu-ray presentations and like nice packaging, Via Vision will probably be what you want to go with. If you just want the 4K, you can probably just, if you're in the US, just get the Lionsgate release, but you will be compromising your Blu-ray and 3D presentations. So Via Vision, they've done a nice job with this 4K release. I'm glad they're getting more into 4K. And yeah, so check it out if you're a fan of Dredd. It's just a, if you've seen The Raid, it's kind of similar. It's just an adaptation of the comic book, but it is just some futuristic police officers in a building trying to murder their way through people to get to this big bad played by Lena Headey. It's a lot of fun. It's a good violent time. Really cool movie. A movie that another 4K release that I had seen this movie before and really loved it. This is the original The Strangers with Liv Tyler. This is courtesy of Scream Factory. I saw this one opening night, midnight showing with a group of friends. And I've loved it ever since. It's very creepy. It's very to the point. It's just a home invasion tale where killers with masks are stalking our main couple and just kind of making their life hell. But it's not overt a lot of times. It's usually like in this scene right here, where you just have someone standing in the background and then just kind of like fading into darkness whenever the character turns around. It's just kind of that lingering dread of these characters, and like hearing knocks on the door and looking outside and no one's there, that kind of thing. And it just all together, even the unrated cut is like like an hour 25 minutes, so it goes by really quickly. It doesn't really draw things out. There was another version of The Strangers that came out earlier this year that I think was nowhere near as effective as this version, even though it was almost like kind of a quasi remake of it. There's just something about this version that I really like. It's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite like home invasion thrillers, and it's just very terrifying. So this has been given a 4K. It's a 4K scan of the digital intermediate. It looks very nice. This mostly takes place at night, so it has really deep, dark black levels. It is definitely better than my old Universal disc that I owned. I never owned the original Scream Factory release of this one, but from what I can tell, that was pretty close to the original Universal Blu-ray, so this will be a much bigger upgrade than that one was. So you do get this in Dolby Vision. Nice crisp detail. Everything looks, I think, as good as you could want this movie to look. There are a couple shots of daylight and stuff in daytime. Those also look very nice and clear, and some nice bold colors. But mostly what you want this for is like the contrasts and stuff. So the black levels and the highlights, all those are like very, very impressive. DTS 5.1 sound still hits. I was watching this last night and I had my wife texting from the other room being like, what are you watching? This is like shaking the house. And I was just like, oh, I'm watching The Strangers. So Soundtrack still hits. All the special features have been ported over. There are no new special features for this one, but you do get the original Universal features from the Blu-ray, and then the Scream Factory, including some interviews that run from about 12 to 30 minutes in length, including an interview with the director and some of the people who play the masked intruders. It's really good selection of special features. I'm glad this got the 4K bump. I've been wanting to rewatch it for a while, and this definitely hit the spot. Staying in the Scream Factory / Shout Factory family, we had the Shout Studios release of Storytelling. This is a pretty screwed up movie from Todd Solondz, but it is not as screwed up as some of his movies by any stretch of the imagination. But you do get two kind of, it's like a dual tales. The first stars Selma Blair as like a college student who gets herself into a kind of a tricky sexual situation with her African-American professor. That's all I'll say with that, but it's Todd Solondz. He's definitely pushing the envelope. And the second kind of longer aspect is Paul Giamatti plays a character who's making a documentary about like kind of like the nuclear family, and you kind of meet all these characters, including one played by the patriarch John Goodman, and kind of start to see this family kind of crumble in front of the camera's eyes, and just all the things that are exposed throughout this portrait of a documentary being made. So this is really just what Todd Solondz does best, is just taking kind of like the American value, like traditional American values, and turning them upon their head, and kind of like exploring and subverting expectations of what we think of when we expect like certain qualities of like a society to be. It's very it can be a rough watch at times. There's a lot of just shocking stuff in here, but it is one that I did quite enjoy. Maybe not as good for me as like Welcome to the Dollhouse, but still very much like Storytelling, and I'm interested to check out Happiness whenever it comes out from Criterion here in a couple weeks. So this comes from a 2K scan of The Inner Positive. It looks really good. This is from their Warner Brothers deal, so this was a Fine Line / New Line production. So this looks very nice. 5.1 and 2.0 audio. 2 interviews that are 18 and 11 minutes long, one with the director of photography, one with the composer. There's also a scene that is provided that shows what it looked like in theaters in its censored form, and it's done in a really interesting way, where it's just they really just literally put like an orange block over the objectionable footage that was being shown, so it's just very clunky. But this movie as presented is uncensored, and you get to see everything as it was originally intended. So Storytelling, if you like more like dark humor and just Todd Solondz in general, it's worth checking out. Heading back to kind of the 80s, we have Madonna and Griffin Dunne in Who's That Girl? So this is Madonna still trying to figure out her performing persona, but this is her attempt at like a screwball comedy. So Madonna plays a woman who has just recently gotten out of jail, and then Griffin Dunne plays a man who is ordered by his boss to make sure she gets on this bus that he wants her to get into. And just by that action alone, you can probably tell that this guy is there's more to the story than he's letting on. So it's just a screwball comedy of Madonna being kind of this very kind of flighty character, which in the commentary track, the commentator made a very interesting comparison, how Pee-wee's Big Adventure had just come out like the year before, and the commentator theorized that maybe Madonna, like, because some of the references she made in the future may have been slightly basing her performance on like the Pee Wee Herman character, because she has like a lot of that kind of sensibilities, which I think a lot of people did not know what to do with Madonna in this movie, but I think she does a really good job of what she's attempting to do. She's making bold choices and she's sticking to them, and she does a good job throughout. Even if it is like a bit broad, I think she was really going for something, and I think she hit what she wanted to, and I think it actually worked for this type of screwball comedy. Griffin Dunn is a good straight man, and it's just kind of like a silly, like two opposite attracts kind of comedy. So this is a Blu-ray release. It's a 2K scan from the 35mm inner positive. It looks very nice, no blemishes or anything like that. Nice bold colors. This does have a 5.1 and 2.0 soundtrack. It has a commentary track from the director, and you also get a gallery and some trailers. But the commentary track, it's not from the director. It's from film historian Russell Dyball, my mistake. He does a good job of just kind of getting into this movie, and this Blu-ray brings another movie for Madonna fans to check out on Blu-ray. Another one in the Shout Factory family. This is a Shout Studios release. It's the 4K upgrade of Matinee with John Goodman. Another John Goodman appearance after storytelling. So this one is a really fun movie. It's from Joe Dante. This is set right around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it's really just kind of informing that kind of paranoia around that time of history and how it kind of bled into the feature films, and like kind of the nuclear paranoia and that, and just the novelty of being a kid and being in love with the magic of movies and going to a cinema and all that stuff. So it's just a kid kind of one summer, it's like over a couple weeks of just his fascination with cinema and this kind of huckster character, showman character, who is coming around with his movies and really just kind of giving you the extra bang for your buck in that in-person theatrical experience, and the kind of which like happened a lot back in the day with like I can't remember the guy's name, but he worked a lot with like Vincent Price. So just like that kind of like over the top theatrical experience that people don't get so much these days with like so much corporate oversight of theaters like Regal and AMC and all that stuff. But for independent cinemas, I think this it's like kind of a love letter to that. John Goodman does a great job. All the other cast also does a good job. And Joe Dante is just really good at just capturing kind of the wonder of youth and the magic of cinema in just a way that few directors can. This was released previously on Blu-ray by Shout. I have that release. And there are some differences, including with the included Blu-ray, because this does get the new 4K restoration on that Blu-ray. But the 4K release does come from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative in Dolby Vision. It includes 5.1 and 2.0 sound, DTS. Dolby Vision looks fantastic. This whole presentation, the 4K restoration, is a nice uptick from the previous Shout Blu-ray. And it's just a very fetching presentation. I was very pleased with that upgrade. In terms of special features, you get almost every special feature that was on the Shout Blu-ray previously, including some new ones. So you get the commentary track, you get 2 new interviews, and the commentary track's new as well. 2 new interviews with some of the performers. And then you also have all the legacy or the previous special features, including interviews with Joe Dante and other cast members and featurettes and stuff. What you don't get is the full like 22-minute version of Mant, which is the movie that plays while like during kind of the finale. You get that on the original Blu-ray, but apparently something either happened with the license or something else happened where they were not able to include Mant on this. So if you do have that original Blu-ray, think twice before selling that off, because if that is a special part of the Blu-ray for you, you do not get that on this 4K. So other than that, that is the one thing that is keeping this 4K from being perfect, but it is still a fantastic release, and I think the ideal way to watch Matinee is on 4K from Shout Studios. My final title from Shout is a thriller with Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges. That is The Morning After from director Sidney Lumet. In terms of the filmography of Sidney Lumet, I would say this is probably middle to lower. It's a fine movie, but I don't think that this reaches its creative heights. It is about Jane Fonda plays an alcoholic woman who wakes up in a place that she does not know where she is or who she is woken up by, but she does know the person she is woken up by does have a knife in them and is dead. So she kind of freaks out and tries to figure out how to kind of clear her name of what is very like overtly looks like a murder that she committed, she ends up getting in league with Jeff Bridges' character, who is a pretty problematic character. He's pretty overtly racist at times, but just seeing them trying to get to the bottom of this and learning each of their kind of dark secrets and stuff. It's interesting enough based on the performances. Surprisingly, Jane Fonda got a Best Actress nomination for this. Did not win, but they did deem it good enough to nominate her. But the stars are the reason to watch this. It's kind of like going for a Hitchcockian flavor that never really quite gets there. But it is worth checking out if you like the performers. It's a good, not great movie. If you just are looking for a thriller, check this one out. It also takes place on Thanksgiving, so if you want to save it for a Thanksgiving viewing, you can also do that. This does come from a 2K scan of The Inner Positive with the 2.0 mono soundtrack. This looks very nice and scanned in 2K. It holds up very well. You get a commentary track and 2 interviews that run from about 12 to 13 minutes. Yeah, it's a pretty solid package for a movie that I want to watch all the Sidney Lumet movies that exist, so I was glad to get this one in a nice Blu-ray from Shout. Heading over to one of my absolute favorite labels, I've talked about their recent journey away from OCN distribution to their own kind of independent releases, and that is Deaf Crocodile and the release of Adela Has Not Had Supper Yet. So they are now releasing these deluxe packages, which you can get on their website or through Diabolic. There's also a standard version, which just has the standard case, which I'll show off here. But just this beautiful packaging. I would advocate for getting the deluxe, but this would be the standard version that you would receive if you did not pay the extra upcharge. Last time I made my editor have a little bit of extra work blurring out the QR code, but you get a QR code here that comes with, you can access the special features with subtitles, or they've been transcribed. This is underneath, it's not too much here. But if you get the deluxe edition of this, you get a nice booklet, which nice and thick booklet with photo reproductions and great essays that you will not want to miss if you're a fan, and just some really interesting footage or materials here. But this comes from the director of one of my favorite Deaf Crocodile releases was The Mysterious Castle in the Carpathians. So that was made after this one, but for Adela Has Not Had Supper Yet, you kind of still get that same kind of zany sensibility. Both of the Deaf Crocodile releases I'm talking about are kind of detective stories of sorts. This involves one of the world's greatest detective being asked to come investigate a kind of a disappearance, and once he gets there, it kind of goes off into all kind of zany directions, and it's just very over the top, but in a very specific way. It's not just pure lunacy for the sake of it. It's just a very clever sense of just unhinged creativity. That I really appreciate, and this is mentioned on the back, and I will not give much in the way of spoilers, but if you want to mix a Sherlock Holmes tale with a little bit of Little Shop of Horrors, that'll give you a little bit of an understanding of what this is going for. I don't want to tip off who Adela is, but it is a treat. But I will say this did not quite reach my pure love of Mysterious Castle and the Carpathians, I still really liked it. I still think that I want to see everything from this director that I can. It just I had such expectations after Carpathians that Adela just didn't quite reach those, but I still think it's a really good movie and well worth checking out. It's a lot of fun, and I was really glad to be able to check this one out. This has been given a really great restoration from the original camera negative, and it has a commentary track and 4 animated shorts from the director that run from about 8 to 14 minutes in length. So some really, like, these animated short preservation, like, that is reason enough for me to check this out. But then with the commentary on track on top of that, just a really stellar release that Depp Crocodile always puts that personal care into each of their releases, that you know they're looking out for fans and giving them the best package possible. So Adela has not had her supper yet. Definitely worth checking out if you just kind of like weird, like, gems of a movie. My next film, this is not an older movie. This is a newer movie from a director that is pretty well represented on Depp Crocodile's label, but I have not seen any of those previous releases. But that is In the Slums of Moscow. So this is from a director who did Zero Grad and a couple other movies that I have not had the chance to watch just yet. From, I won't even attempt this name, but right here. So this is their latest movie. This has come out in the past couple of years, maybe even last year, I believe. But it says 2023 on the back. So Depp Crocodile has generally not put out many modern movies. They have put out at least one that I'm aware of. There's another QR code for the special features. They have put out one that I'm well aware of because it's one of my favorites they've released overall, and that is World War III, which is fantastic. In the Moscow Slums, I unfortunately did not like as much as World War III or any. This is probably, I still like it, but it is probably one of my least favorite Depp Crocodile releases to date. But it is, and it's an interesting one. It just kind of has more of almost like a made-for-TV feel that just kind of put me at a disadvantage for liking this one. It just, aesthetically, it just seemed a little cheap. But overall, it's a pretty fun story. It has some real life creative figures, including the famous artist Stanislavski. He's portrayed in the early 1900s as kind of trying to go into the Moscow slums to kind of get a sense of like authenticity for like something that he is trying to create, and he soon kind of gets embroiled in this kind of mystery, and it's based on a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, who did Sherlock Holmes, and it just kind of adapts that kind of mystery, and like things kind of spiral out in grand fashion. There's a lot of fun kind of quirky things within this one. The performances are pretty solid. It's just like compared to, I always, whenever I'm watching a Depp Crocodile release, I usually rank it like on a 5-star scale from like 4 to 5 for most of them. They usually always hit out of the park. I would put this more as like a solid 3. Like, it's good, but it just didn't blow me away like most of kind of their like gems that they discover are. So in comparison to other movies, it's still a very good movie. So In the Moscow Slums, it's a newer movie, so the HD presentation looks great. It's perfectly clear, great audio. This has a really nice number of special features, which, if you're on the fence, may put you over the edge because they really went all out. You get a couple of visual essays, one 23 minutes, one 18 minutes. You get a 45-minute interview. You get a 67-minute documentary on Mosfilm, which for me itself almost kind of makes the set for me, because I've seen references to Mosfilm through a lot of the preservation efforts that Depp Crocodile has been doing over the past couple of years. And just to get more context as to what this entity is, what kind of their whole history is, it really helped kind of contextualize a lot of stuff for me that I think was very worthwhile. And then you also get a couple of trailers and stuff. So beyond the film itself, there's also a lot of great stuff worth checking out with this package. And I am down for supporting anything that Depp Crocodile releases. So in the Moscow Slums, not sure if you can try it before you buy it, if you can even find it anywhere. But if so, maybe try it before you buy. But support Depp Crocodile. They put out a lot of great stuff, and this is another one worth still checking out. Going to my next title, this is from Anime Ego and NBD Entertainment. We have Riding Bean, which is a OVA animated anime short. Runs about 45 minutes. And is just a tale of a really talented driver who is always on the other side of the law, who gets recruited to transport this kidnapped girl back to her home. But things get a little bit complicated when he himself is accused of being the kidnapper, and just all hell breaks loose. It's a pretty whirlwind of a tale. It's a lot of fun. There's some kind of misogynistic things going on here that kind of brings it down a couple points. It's very like male gazy, like his partner that he has a lot of times. But other than that, pretty solid anime, worth checking out. This has been upgraded to HD. It looks very good. You get the original Japanese language track and an English dub. You get some sketches and promos and stuff. So if you like anime and you like kind of like action-packed stuff, Riding Bean has a pretty compelling main character and great animation. So it is worth checking out. Staying in the world of animation and NBD Entertainment, we have My Love Affair with Marriage, which, while dealing with an Eastern European woman, it is completely in English. This is a very kind of like feminist-leaning tale of just a woman. It shows like her life from like birth to like adulthood, and just kind of how her brain kind of gets manipulated by what she experiences as a, like, it just showcases her trials and tribulations as a woman, how that impacts how she sees romantic love and what she desires and what she is able, what she is willing to put up with and what she thinks she should do as a woman. And there's a lot of kind of like scientific theory kind of woven in very fun ways. There's song and dance numbers and everything that kind of really just kind of get to the core of a lot of feminist issues and how women kind of are positioned in society and how they feel in society. This didn't work out as great as I had hoped. It's still a good movie. Once again, I'd probably give it like a 3 out of 5 or so. I was hoping there would be more laughs. I think a lot of their laughs fall flat, but it's still a very clever movie, and I like a lot of the points they're making. It just, compared to some of the praise that I saw for this movie, I was expecting just a little bit better. But it's still a decent movie, and it's worth checking out if it sounds interesting to you. I think it's more one of those movies where I'm like, I agree with what you're saying, but the way it all kind of comes together is not completely worthwhile as a movie. So, this comes with a nice, beautiful HD presentation, 5.1 sound, along with a 2.0 track, and you also get a 58-minute live like panel presentation with the director, and who kind of talks about her process of bringing this to the screen, which is also very interesting. So it's a good release for a movie that is well-intentioned and pretty decent, but not fantastic. My next title is one from Altered Innocence. This is, I believe, from the 70s. This is You Are Not Alone. I believe this is a Danish movie. And this is about a boarding school for boys. I think it's adjacent to one with girls, because you see a few girls in here. But mostly it's about these 2 young Danish boys and kind of their burgeoning friendship and sexuality, and kind of their kind of feelings for one another. There's a few other kind of side storylines with some of the kids, like in this kind of boarding school, and them getting into trouble and everything. But the core of this are these 2 young boys who are played by young boys. So so it feels more authentic. And this uses the word controversial on the back cover, and I can understand why, because this is a movie that just really could not be made today in this way, because you do actually get like full frontal like male nudity from these young boys. Like, it's not in an objective way. It's just like kind of a shower scene where they're kind of like they're washing themselves and kind of like talking each other through like hygiene and stuff. But I just, for those who are sensitive to that type of thing, I just want to be aware that some may be like kind of offended by or unprepared for having to see that on screen, because it's just something you don't really get in modern movies. It is from Ultra Innocence, so it is from it has like a queer bent to it. I would not say that it is like the overwhelming like message of this movie, but it just kind of like it portrays everything in a more kind of natural way, coming of age tale with a queer bent. And it works out really well. I was actually very impressed by how this kind of like very tastefully handled this in a lot of ways, and just like, it's not a doom and gloom movie either. It's very kind of overall uplifting. So yeah, it's a really interesting one and worth checking out. So You Are Not Alone. There's not a lot to it. The restoration, it looks pretty good. There's some minor blemishes here and there that have not been cut by the restoration gauntlet, but overall it looks good. This only includes a trailer, but the movie itself is strong enough to warrant it if that sounds even remotely interesting to you. Going into a trio of releases from one of my absolute favorite labels, Radiance Films. The first is A Man on His Knees. This has a OBI strip, which I will remove and show how that looks without it. So this is a film from Damiano Damiani, who has a couple of releases from Radiance on the books. Here is a booklet with our lead character. He is the man who is on his knees, which in this case means that he is a shopkeeper who gets himself like mistakenly into a situation where kind of like a mob front is coming after him and wants restitution for certain things that he just does not have the money for, and it just really kind of spirals out of control there, of just like what is this normal man going to do whenever his back is against the wall. He is on his knees, and just like, how is he going to get out of this situation without ending up dead, and like anyone in his family ending up dead. It's a very interesting like Italian movie, crime movie. It's the worldwide Blu-ray premiere, and it's very, very entertaining. This comes from a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative. There are new and archival interviews here. So yeah, if you're a fan of Damiani, this one's really entertaining. It's kept me rapt at attention from beginning to end. So definitely check this one out from Radiance. It's a good one. The next one I'm not as high on. That is Viva La Muerte. This is just, it's a very provocative movie, and if you watched my videos for any amount of time, you might know I'm not into like the extremely hardcore like kind of like exploitation films. And there's just a lot of stuff in here imagery wise, which I just it was pushing my boundaries of what I was comfortable with. But this is from a Spanish filmmaker named Fernando Arrabal. And the basic premise of this story is a young kid, his father is taken away taken away by the communists after his wife turns him in for some of his kind of leanings that are kind of more progressive, and like some of the ideas that he is spouting, and his wife turns him in, and their son learns about this, and it's just kind of like cannot really forgive his mom for what she has done. So this movie is a lot of just like the actual world playing out, but at the same time it'll like change into kind of like a very rough video style where you can see kind of like his baser ideas, and like he's a young boy, so there's like mixtures of violence and sexuality and like incest and all kinds of stuff mixed within this kind of imagery that is very upsetting. And there's a lot of, this is a trigger warning for like animal cruelty, because you actually get to see a bull like killed on screen, like in like a factory. So you get to see like a full huge bull, throat slashed, blood just like pouring and pouring, and then you see people like kind of like writhing around in it and like kind of like splashing themselves in it. It's insane. It's a lot to take in. There's people like I assume simulating defecating on other people and stuff. There's a lot of stuff here. So not quite my bag. There were things that I found interesting about it, but it's a lot to take in. So it will probably take me, like, if I give it a second viewing, which I do kind of want to do after watching some of the special features, it'll probably take a second feature for me to fully appreciate it. This does come not with an audio commentary track, but a podcast from the projection booth, which I actually listened to on my phone because I saw it was going to be the exact same thing, and that conversation gave me a lot of like context and things to think about upon future viewings. But you also get a 20-minute documentary about this film, another an hour and 40-minute documentary on Erebol, which also helps put some things into perspective, and another 21-minute interview. So this comes from a 4K restoration that premiered at Cannes. It looks very nice. It's just it's a lot of movie and not quite to my sensibility. So Viva La Muerte, at your own risk. We also have the final film from Radiance is Tattooed Life from Seijun Suzuki. If I butchered that name, my apologies. He's a filmmaker who did like Branded to Kill. This is a Yakuza tale about brothers who have to kind of go on the run from some criminal figures, some Yakuza figures, and they get themselves into a different situation where they may not be any more safe where they land up, especially when they kind of get involved with kind of the boss's wife in an interesting way. Get a nice booklet here. So this is a pretty decent tale. It has a really Suzuki. He really makes a really fascinating finale. It's the shot very well. Shot composition is really insane, very violent, but in a kind of beautiful way. Check it out, definitely. If you like Japanese cinema, this is definitely one to keep on your radar. This does come from an HD master from Nikasatsu Corporation, but it's a pretty solid HD restoration. You get a commentary track and 2 interviews that run from about like 12 to 15 minutes long. So Tattooed Life, if you like Suzuki, if you like Japanese cinema, it's worth checking out. All right, so my next like kind of run of titles, I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible because a lot of these are just kind of bare essentials. But my first title in this batch is from Sony. This is a 4K release of Can't Hardly Wait. This is a graduation night party movie from the 90s with a lot of people that you know, like Seth Green and Jennifer Love Hewitt, Peter Facinelli, Lauren Ambrose. Just a 4K release of that. It's a pretty solid movie. Some very dated elements in here, but if you like that kind of 90s teen movie aesthetic, there's some amusing things in here. Some things I would change, but otherwise still pretty solid. This comes from a 4K scan of the original camera negative from Sony. It is Sony, so it's fantastic. Dolby Vision. You have an Atmos track and the original 5.1 track, so either if you want expanded audio, you have that option, or the original audio. You get a new set of deleted scenes never before seen in pretty poor quality, but you get them. You also get the original deleted scenes and 2 commentary tracks and some featurettes. So Sony is always hitting it out of the park with their 4K releases, and Can't Hardly Wait is no different. From Gravitas Ventures, we have the Blu-ray release of The Argument. This is a burned, manufactured on the demand disc. So if you have a player that does not work well with burned disc, be aware of that. This has a cast that I really like, so I wanted to check out. So you have Danny Pudi from Community, Maggie Q. You have Tyler James Williams from Abbott Elementary. And just a lot of great cast members. But this, at its core, is a story about a couple who has an argument after a night where like the girlfriend has a very important play. They come back, all their friends kind of like have like a gathering after the play, and things kind of go awry. And at the end of the night, the couple cannot agree on whose fault like this certain argument was, who's right and who's wrong. So they go about trying to recreate the night, unbeknownst to their friends at first, of like exactly the next night, and they try to like replay the night, and it just becomes almost like a Kaufman-esque, but not as clever, like recreation of this night over and over, of trying to get to the truth of who actually went like wrong with this argument. I love that premise. I think it's fantastic. The problem with this one is the jokes just do not land most of the time. There are some funny moments, mostly carried by the performances by these people that I've talked about that I really like. But overall, it's not very like this word is kind of loaded, but it's not very progressive. There's a lot of things in here that I think they could have like finessed and like just added some more funny things to make it all kind of work together. But overall, the argument, there's a few good things, but it just kind of more of like stream it and probably forget about it. You probably don't need to get it on Blu-ray because there's no special features. It's just a trailer and HD transfer that looks good. One more progressive, even though it was like 70 years earlier, we have Once to Every Woman. This is an early 1930s film with Fay Wray. It's a hospital drama from Sony. It's a hospital drama, and there's a lot of there's patients and a little bit of romantic entanglements, but the women are actually given a chance to actually like run a department and like be shown in a position of authority, where it's not just like they are romantically smitten and just kind of like love struck or anything. They actually have some gravitas, so I really like that, and it's kind of progressive notions. There are some things I would love if it wasn't depicted in certain ways, but overall this is a pretty good like early, I believe probably pre-code movie from Sony. I do not know the exact restoration details, but it looks fantastic. There's been a nice restoration. No special features, but just like a really quality early Hollywood movie, and set in the medical field, very much worth checking out. Going to a documentary from Giant Pictures, we have Lost in the Shuffle. This is more deeply a film about like the mysteries behind the story of like the story behind a suit of cards, and like the filmmaker positing that maybe it depicts like a mystery, like a murder mystery that happened like in royal times and stuff, and just kind of like unpacking that. But mainly it's a love letter to like close-up magic and card tricks and all that, like just like all that kind of stuff that I personally love. I love kind of like the broad picture view of this. The murder solving of this, like the historical deep dive, it works fine, but the card, like the love of like card art and like magic and everything, that's what really hooked me. So for that reason alone, I think it's a worthwhile documentary. I just think that some of the detours that it takes, it's not the best version of itself, but still, if you love like card magic and stuff like that, it's worth catching Lost in the Shuffle. There's only a trailer on this, but the HD transfer looks good. This is a burned disc as well. So if you have a problem with burned disc in your player, be aware of that. But otherwise, Lost in the Shuffle is worth checking out. Going to Mill Creek Entertainment, we have the the continuing series of Icons Unearthed, this time Fast and the Furious. So you get 6 episodes of experts talking about the background of the Fast and the Furious franchise, from the initial development to the sequels that didn't quite go as well as they wanted to, and then eventually turning into like a globetrotting like spy movie, and then the loss of Paul Walker. You get all of this over the course of these 6 episodes. You have like kind of historical experts and stuff, and some people from the cast, including Tyrese Gibson, T.I., Lucas Black. And if you like kind of just like a behind the scenes deep dive, this does the trick. I think it's a pretty, like, if you like Fast and Furious and you just want to learn more about the behind the scenes stuff in just like a kind of easy, accessible way, this will do you right. We've also had like The Simpsons already, and franchise that escapes me at the moment. Oh, Star Wars. So this is, they're just continuing to do this at Mill Creek and getting out more of these. So expect over the next couple months them to keep cycling through some really, I think the next one might be Marvel. What I really always love about these sets is they give you full unedited interviews from some of these participants. So for that sake, I wanted to point out that you get a 2 hours with Tyrese just talking, 68 minutes with Lucas Black, 36 minutes with T.I., a 36-minute interview with Roger Corman. Surprise, like, why is he here? But you watch it and you'll see. And then an 83-minute interview with the kind of stunt coordinator of like the last few movies. So some good extra interview stuff here, and just the series itself. While I would not personally put 6 hour-long episodes on one disc, it holds up pretty well for what this footage entails. It holds up. So if you're a fan of this series, these Blu-ray releases keep holding up well. Going down a 4K rabbit hole with the Warner Brothers, we had the 4K release of Game Night. So this is no digital copy, but a 4K disc of Game Night. Hilarious movie, Rachel McAdams and Jason Bateman getting in over their heads into a game night turned like kind of criminal like mystery with all of their friends and stuff, trying to like solve this overall mystery. It's a lot of fun, hilarious, expertly directed. It's like more well directed than like most comedies of the 2010s that I could imagine. Some iconic line deliveries in here. Jesse Plemons is a gem, and just one of the funniest movies of the 2010s in my opinion. You get this in Dolby Vision, which is shocking because Warner very rarely uses Dolby Vision in their catalog releases, and these next, like this and the next 2 movies, all use Dolby Vision. So I like what they're doing. I just wish they would put it more towards their mainline releases. Like we have Nightmare on Elm Street coming out in a couple weeks. I don't think it has Dolby Vision. What are we doing over here? Anyway, Game Night, Dolby Vision looks great. DTS 5.1 sound, and it carries over the couple of special features that were on the previous Blu-ray disc. Nothing too in-depth, just like a couple like brief making of and a gag reel. So Game Night, if you like it, 4K upgrade is worth it. One Blu-ray I did not own previously, but now I have on 4K, is Black Mass with Johnny Depp as Whitey Bulger. So just a criminal film of Whitey and just his kind of reign in Boston and just all that kind of tale. Really great cast. Johnny Depp, Joel Edgerton, Benedict Cumberbatch, Kevin Bacon, Jesse Plemons again, Peter Sarsgaard, Corey Stoll, Dakota Johnson. A lot of great people in here. It's a pretty good movie. If you like crime movies, I think you'll be pleased. It's a little bit dull at points, but overall it's a pretty well shot film, worth checking out. In Dolby Vision, looks nice. It's not the most colorful movie, but it looks really good. Deep black levels. Everything holds up very well. A couple of special features, 3 featurettes that run 12 to 62 minutes. And that is like a profile on Whitey Bulger that I think is a very big benefit to this set. But if you like this movie, the 4K I think is worth it. The next of these kind of like manufactured on demand but still burn disc 4Ks are Focus from Warner Brothers with Will Smith and Margot Robbie. This is a kind of con man comedy drama where Will Smith is kind of takes Margot Robbie under his wing to teach her kind of how to be a proper con man, and they kind of like start to have their own kind of romantic entanglements, feelings get complicated, all that stuff. So Focus, this one didn't hold up as well as when I first watched it a couple years ago. I still think it's fun. I just didn't quite seem as like fresh as when I first watched it. I still gave it like a 3 out of 5, but if you like these two actors, it's a pretty light, entertaining movie. And it's still worth checking out. It looks really nice in Dolby Vision, and this does have 7.1 audio and has a deleted scenes, 3 featurettes, and an alternate opening. So, Focus, if you like it, the 4K I think is worth it. Heading to my last pair of titles from Arrow Video. These are going to be a little bit more in depth. This is the Blu-ray release of The Threat, another Japanese film. So we have that here, and then this is the reversible cover art here. I've already reversed it to save on time. So you got that here. You get a poster and a booklet. So that's the disc art. You get poster here, and you get a booklet here, so some essays and details about the restoration and all that good stuff. This is a pretty simple tale. It's another this is a crime film / home invasion tale of some criminals who get their way into a family's home, takes the wife and kid hostage, and forces the man of the house to help them attain some money so they can kind of continue on with their prison escape and get clear and free. And things kind of spiral out of control as this family is trying to stay alive and fight back when possible and just trying to survive and stuff. And it's a pretty solid criminal tale. I was entertained. It's a pretty short one. It's only an hour and 24 minutes, but it works very well. So yeah, if you're a fan of Japanese cinema and you like kind of like taut crime tales, that's worth checking out. This is from a HD master from Toei. You get a commentary track and a 20-minute appreciation piece. So yeah, if you like Kinji Fukasaku, The Threat is very much worth checking out from Arrow Video. And finally, my final title is from Arrow. This is Vin Diesel's sequel, The Chronicles of Riddick, sequel to Pitch Black, which I have reviewed the 4K for Geek Vibes before. I actually rewatched this and watched it for the first time with my wife prior to watching this to kind of refresh, even though Pitch Black is completely different from Chronicles of Riddick. This also, this cover art is different from this beautiful slip cover, and then there's another cover art which was the original DVD release cover art, which I'll show off here. So you get that poster art here. And this limited edition comes with 3 discs, and I will tell you what is exclusive to this first pressing. So you get the theatrical cut in 4K, you get the director's cut in 4K, and you get the theatrical cut in an open matte aspect ratio 1.78 by 1 in 4K. So 3 versions of the film on 3 discs in 4K. This third disc with the open matte version, that is exclusive to this first pressing of the limited edition. So if you do not get this while the limited edition is still in print, you will not be able to see this open matte aspect ratio of 1.78 by 1, which I'll talk about in just a second. You also get a booklet here. So Pitch Black was just kind of like a Vin Diesel as kind of like a fugitive, him and some people getting stuck on a planet fighting off some aliens. Chronicles of Riddick is insane because it like opens up to almost like a Dune / Lord of the Rings-esque like lore of like a space opera where Riddick like it's just like I said, it's just an insane space opera on the level of Dune, but not as good or well thought out as what Frank Herbert's Massive Vision is. But Riddick in this kind of tale of I couldn't explain the plot if I wanted to. I could, but it would take me like another 40 minutes. But him turning into almost like a king by the end of the movie, it's wild stuff. There's some great production design and costume design, and Vin Diesel is actually which is interesting since I talked about the Fast and Furious franchise. He's a very charismatic actor, and he does genuinely care about this, and he puts in a good performance. And then he brings some people in to elevate him, like Judi Dench is in this movie. But the script itself, I think, could use some finessing. But it's so wildly ambitious that you have to respect it, that they just went balls out. And I learned while watching this movie that there's a follow-up to this movie called Riddick, which I hope Arrow tackles just so I can have the full slate on 4K. But there's apparently a fourth movie that just started shooting like a week or two ago, that I did not know was going to come out. So there's a fourth Riddick movie that just started production. So watch out for that. But this movie is wild, ambitious, and pretty fun. Even though it's pretty stupid at times, it's still worth checking out. I would say if you like Vin Diesel or just like weird big space operas, check it out. It's from a 4K restoration of the Super 35mm original camera negative. There was some 2K upscales in the director's cut for some of the original footage in that one, but it blends together pretty seamlessly. And the director's cut is a pretty good amount longer. I think it's at least like almost 20 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. But both are preserved very well in Dolby Vision. 5.1 for both cuts of the film. Dolby Atmos is exclusive to the theatrical cuts of the film, both aspect ratios. You also get a new 74-minute documentary. Vin Diesel doesn't appear new in the documentary, but you get like David Towie, who directs it, and some different actors and creative figures and stuff. You also get 3 new interviews, including one interview with David Towie, one with Keith David, and then one with one of the concept artists and stuff. Those run from about 10 to 14 minutes. You get all the archival special features. And as I showed you, that alternate aspect ratio of 1.78 by 1, while it's not like my first choice to watch this movie, I think it's a really interesting choice because just seeing the full like frame of your TV filled up with this image, I think is an interesting option to have, even if it's not how it was originally composed. If you're offering extra versions to watch the movie, I'm all for it as long as the original version is preserved. So Arrow went above and beyond for the Chronicles of Riddick. I can finally upgrade my old HD DVD. So very excited about that. They've done a really nice job in 4K. And they really just hit it out of the park. I love Arrow, and I'm all for it. So I damn near lost my voice from talking about all of these movies, but I had such a blast. I hope you enjoyed watching it. So many titles. I hope you found something to like. If you did, let me know in the comment. Let me know what you're interested to check out. If there's anyone that you think would like any of these movies or shows, make sure to share that with them. I appreciate any of you who come back week after week watching this. I have such a blast doing it, and I hope you have a blast watching it. If there's something you want to see me talk about in the future, please let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to Geek Vibes Nation. I do this every week. I will be back again with another slate of titles next week, but until then, enjoy these movies.
Now